Okay, in the last session, the previous session, we have seen how to work with the numbers and string type of data, right? So today we are going to see few important concepts in Python programming, collections. So normally when I create a variable, let's say I say 10, a equal to 10. So a is a name of the variable. I can store some value into the variable. And similarly, I can create one more variable and then I can store some value. And similarly, I can create one more variable and then I can give some value into that variable. Now, if I just look at here, every variable can hold single value at a time. Every variable can hold only single value at a time. So if you want to store multiple values into a single variable, for example, take a class. Suppose in the class, there are so many students are there. So I want to store all the student IDs into a variable. So normally how many variables are required to store student IDs? Suppose let us say 50 number of students are there in the class. So I need to take it 50 variables. 50 variables are required to store all the student IDs. So instead of creating so many variables, I can have only one single variable which can hold multiple sets of data. Like all the student IDs I want to store in one single variable. So how it is possible? So this is possible by using collections concept. Collection concept. So collections are, there are actually four types of collections are available in Python. Python supporting four types of collections. So the first type of collection is list type of collection. Second one is a tuple. Third one is a set. And fourth one is a dictionary. So these are the four types of collections supported in Python language: list, tuple, set, and dictionary. So what is the use of these collection types? Suppose if you want to store if you want to store multiple sets of data, it can be same type of data or different type of data. The data can be any type. So I want to store multiple values into a single variable. So then we can go with the collections. So there are multiple collections are there: list, tuple, set, and dictionary. So it depends upon our requirement. We need to choose proper collection to maintain the data. Now today's session, I will mainly talk about list and tuple. So these are the two collections we will discuss first, and the rest of the two we will discuss in the next class. So first let us start with the list collection. So what is the list collection means? So list, the name itself is saying which can store multiple values, in which we can store multiple values. So in list collection, if I just look at the some description about the list, the first point is a list is a collection which is ordered and changeable. So these terms are most important. A list is a collection which is ordered and changeable. So what is meant by order? What is changeable? So list is a first type of collection. So basically, let us understand what is the list. So list is a collection which is ordered and changeable. That means what? Whatever the values we will add into the list, those values will be stored in proper order. And in whichever order we have stored the values in the list, in the same order, it will be preserved. Okay, suppose when I say 1, 2, 3, 4, and the same order will be maintained in the list. And changeable. Changeable means what? Anytime we can change those values. So list collection in which the values are orderly aligned and it is always changeable. So in Python, lists are written with the square brackets. So to representing the list, we use square brackets. So to representing the list, we use a square bracket. And a list is a mutable. List is a mutable. That means what? We can do changes. So mutable means we can do changes. So we need to understand a few things here. So mutable means what? We can change the existing values, or we can add a new values, or we can insert a new values into the list. And we can also remove the existing values from the list. All the operations are possible in the list because the list is a mutable. List is a mutable. So now let us see a few operations, how we can define the list and how we can add values into the list, how we can perform different operations on the list. So let's go to the PyCharm. Let me open my PyCharm. Just a moment. Now it is started my PyCharm. Just a moment. All right. Now, so today let us create a new directory. So right click on the project. New directory. And I say day 4. Right. So in which I'm just creating a new Python file. I'll name it as list.demo.py. All right. So once you created a file, now we'll see how we can declare the list. The first example 1, how to create a list. So how to create a list in Python. So to create a list in Python, so what we can do is we can just create a variable first. So I'll say my list. This is my variable, my list equal to. So to define the list, we use bracket like this. This is a symbol. Now in this, we can specify the values like say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 like this. So not only numbers, we can also add strings, and also we can add different combinations of data. Some values can be strings, some values can be numbers, some values can be decimals. So list will allow us to store different type of data also. So this is a list 1. So what kind of list it is a number list. All the numbers we can store in the list. So this is how we can just create a list. Type variable equal to, in the square bracket we can specify all the values. Now the single variable can hold multiple values here. One single variable can hold multiple values. And similarly, I want to store one more list. I create one more list. I'll say my list 2 equal to. I can also store strings. Let's say apple, and the second string I can say banana, and third string I can store let's say cherry. So like this you can store the string. So this is a first string, second string, and a third string. So a list also can contains a multiple strings, and sometimes a list contains all kinds of data types. For example, I say my list 3 equal to, in the bracket you can specify the first value is apple, second value I can store a number, and again next value I can store string, and again next value I can store a number. So the list can also contains a different type of data. And suppose I just want to define the list variable, but I don't want to have any data in that list. So in that case, we can simply say my list equal to list and just open bracket and leave that. So this is an empty list. So list we created, my list is a variable we created, but it doesn't have any value. Currently it is empty list. So this is basically empty list. So this is how we can just create a list. But how to print the values from the list? So to print the values from the list, we can simply say print name of the list, my list 1. And similarly, we can print all the other list. So print my list 1, my list 2, my list 3, and my list 4. Now my list 4 is not there, only my list is there, which doesn't have any data, which is empty list. Let's try to execute. And now we can see all the data. So this is a first list and second list, third list, and the last list, it doesn't have any data. So this is how we can just create a list which contains a multiple values. Now we'll see how to access the items from the list. Example 2. Accessing items from the list. How to access the items from the list. So let's create one list. I'll say my list equal to, in the bracket I will define a few items in that list. Let's create a list like this. So my list contains apple, banana, and cherry. So here the list contains 3 items. So the list contains 3 items. Now I want to access these items individually. So I want to access the first item, or I want to access the middle item, or I want to access the last item. So in the list, every item is representing by index number. In the list, every item is representing by index number. So index number is always start from 0. So index starts from 0. So we need to always find the index to start from 0. Now, if you want to access the first element from that list, you can simply say print of my list, and in the bracket we have to just specify the number of the item. So 0 means what? The first item will be returned. And similarly, I want to get the last value, cherry. So 0, 1, and 2. So when I say 2 here, this will return the last value. So let me just execute, and this will print you 2 values. So to access the individual elements from the list, we have to just pass the index number. Accordingly, we can get the particular value. And we can also pass the negative values. For example, I say print my list of -1. So when I say -1, what happens? It will return the last value. So -1 means the last value. Remember this. Actually, the index of this element is 0, 1, and 2. So this is exactly equal to this one. Okay, so negative indexing also allowed. So when I say -1, it will get the it will count the element from the end. So -1 means last one. Similarly, -2 means banana, which will return. So this will get you the elements or items from the end. Now, when I execute this, this will give you. So apple, cherry, 0 element and second element. And -1 is a last element, which is return cherry, and -2 is a second element, which is return banana. Okay, so this is how we can extract the items from the list. Individual items, if you want to extract, we can extract name of the list. In the bracket, we can pass the index. Okay, so this is one example. Now, sometimes we can also get multiple elements based on the index we passed. We can simply say range of indexes. Example 3. Range of indexes. So we can also pass the indexes, range of indexes. For example, let's create one more list. So my list equal to, I have multiple fruit names are there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements are there. Totally 7 items are there in my list. Okay, so for example, I want to get only some items from the list. Let's say first 2 elements, or last 3 elements, or in the middle, I want to get 3 elements. So how we can get it? So for that, we can just simply say print my list. In the bracket, we can specify. So I say 2:5. 2:5. What's the meaning of 2:5? So 2 is a starting element. Means what? 0, 1, 2. So what is the 2 element? Cherry is a 2 element. So from there, 5. What is the 5th element? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the 5th element. So between cherry and melon. So what are the items we have in this list? All the items will be printed. So let's execute and see. And this is printed 3 items. This is printed 3 items. So 2 means what? 0, 1, 2. So it is starting from cherry. 5 means what? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But 5th element we will not get. Before that, n-1. That is kiwi. So till kiwi we will get. So we can also capture a few number of items from the list by specifying the range. So in the previous example, we have extracted specific value from or specific item from the list. But this time we are able to extract the multiple elements from the list, multiple items from the list. Okay. And sometimes we can also pass the negative index also here. So sometimes we can also pass the negative index. So for example, print, right? So print my list. And here I will just say -4:-1. So -4:-1. So what does mean? What this will return? So whenever I say negative value, that will count from the end of the list. That will count from the end of the list. So -4 means what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So orange is a starting point. So -1 is what? Mango is a -1, last element. So from the orange to mango. So what are the elements we have? 4 elements are there, but last element will not be displayed because n-1. So only 3 elements we will get the output. So when I run this code, this will give you 3 elements, 3 items. So -4 means what? One from the end, it will count 1, 2, 3, 4. So orange. -1 means what? Last element, but last element will not print. Before that, whichever element is there, that will print. So from orange to melon, what are the elements are there? Only those elements will be printed. So we can also give the negative value to get the some values from the list, which is basically called as a range of indexes also we can provide. This is one more example. Suppose I have a list which contains some items, and later on I want to change the items. I want to change items. Can we change the items from the list? Yes, because it is a mutable. So mutable is nothing but we can change the values in the list. We can add a new values. We can insert a values. We can remove the values. So every operation we can do on the list means because that is a mutable object. Okay. Now let me just show you how to change the item value. Example 4. Change item value. We can call it as an item. So whatever values we have stored in the list, we can call it as items, or we can call them as a values. Okay, or we can call them as elements. You can call them as with any name, no problem, but all are same. So change item value. So how to change the item value from the list? So again, let me take the list. So let me take the same list again, my list, which contains again multiple items. So in this, I want to first print the list. Let me take a few elements. Let me just have 3 elements. You can have any number of elements. Let me just take 3 elements for now. So first of all, I want to print this list. How to print this list? By using print command. You can simply say my list. This will print the list. So what this will print when I run this? 3 elements are printed. So this is perfectly fine. 3 elements are printed or 3 items are printed. Now I want to change the first item. So first item is what? Apple. So instead of apple, I want to have orange. Okay, I want to change the first element, first item from the list. So for that, what we can do is, first of all, let us try to access this element. How to access the first element from that list? My list of index number. Index number is what here? First element. How to access this element? This is 0 element, right? 0, 1, and 2. So my list of 0, I can simply say orange, right? So this is 0 element, first element, third element. So 0, 1, 2, second element. So I want to change the first element. First element is representing with a 0. So my list of 0 equal to orange. Now after changing this element, then again try to print this list. Now execute. So now we can see apple is replaced with orange. Apple is replaced with the orange. So like this, we can also change the value in the list. So even if you have no more number of values, we can change the values in the list. It is always possible. Okay. So what is basically this statement will do? This statement is basically change the value of the item based on the index we pass. Whichever index we passed, and that element or that item will be changed. Okay, so this is how we can change the value in the list or change the item in the list. And suppose I have a list like this. Example 5. Suppose I have a list. Let's say create my list, apple, banana, cherry. So I have 3 items in my list. So if I want to read individual items from the list, what we have done earlier, we have specified the index and we have captured individual items from the list. Suppose I have 10 items or I have 20 items, right? How many print statements we have to write? We have to write more number of print statements to access individual items. But instead of writing more number of print statements, I can simply write one loop statement. With that loop, we can read all the items from the list one after another. Okay. So now in the example 5, I'll tell you how to read items using loop statement. Read the list items. Read the list items using loop statement. And how to write a loop statement here is simple. For take one variable called I in my list, and simply print value of I. That's it. So this will, how this is going to execute. First, from the my list, it will get the first item and store that into I, and then I will be printed. In the next round of execution, second item will be stored into the I. Now the banana will be printed. In the third round of execution, cherry will be stored in the I, then it will print. In the next round, we don't have any more values in the my list, then loop will be exited. So we can also iterate this list by using looping statement. Right? If you have 2 or 3 values, you can directly access those elements by just passing the index like this. But you have 10 elements or 20 elements, it is very difficult to write more number of statements. Instead of that, we can simply write a loop statement by which we can get individual values and we can print those values in the console window. Now, when I execute this, which will print all the values. Okay, so this is the way we can read the values from the list by using a looping statement. This is one example. Now, for example, I have a list which contains a number of items. Then I want to search for an item. So for example, let's say example 6. Check if the item is exist in the list or not. Exist in the list or not. Check if the item is exist in the list or not. So for example, here I'm taking a list. Let me take the same list. And in this, I have 3 items. So what is my search item now? My search item is something, let's say apple. So I want to check apple is present in this list or not. I want to check apple is present in this list or not. So for the, if it is present, I want to print it is present. Yes, it is present. If it is not present, then I will print no, apple is not present. So here we need to write one if condition. So how to write if condition? Simple. If apple in my list, okay, this is apple is an item, is a value I'm expecting to be there in the list. Apple in my list, okay. If this condition is true, this is also a condition. Apple in my list, this is also condition. So what this will return? This will also returns true or false. In operator returns true or false. If this item is present inside the my list, this condition will return true. If the apple is not present in this my list, then this will return false. Okay. So if this expression is returning true, means what? Print yes, apple is present. Else what? Print no, apple is not present. So by using if else condition, we can write it. So we can search for an element or we can search for an item which is present in this list or not. So how we can search? By using if else condition. If this apple in a list, if it is present, then this statement will execute. If it is not present, this expression will return false, then else statement will execute. Now apple is already there. So what I'm expecting, it should press yes, apple is present. Perfectly fine. And suppose I'm giving some different value, apple 1, 2, 3. Then no, apple is not present. So like this, we can also check whether the item is present inside this list or not. Okay, most important example. So similarly, suppose I want to find a total number of values or total number of items in the list. How we can find? Example 7. Example 7. Okay, so I want to find the length of a list length, counting number of items in a list. Suppose I have 10 items or 15 items. How we will know the length, total number of items in a list? So take the list here. my list equal to, I have a 3 items. So I want to find total number of items available in the list. So for that, we have a method called, we have a function called len. And here you have to just pass the name of the list, that is my list. So what this function will do is, this function will find length of the list, whatever the list variable be passed here inside this bracket. So len function will find out the length of a list and it will return the length. So it will returns the length. So if you want to print it, again, we have to use print function. Keep that in the print function. So this particular statement will return the length of a string. Means what? How many items are present inside the list. Execute. Now it is saying 3 items. So it is returning 3 items. So len is a function. Len is a function in which we have to just pass a list that will return the number of items. Suppose I already have this list which contains some number of items. I want to add a new item. How we can add? Example 8. Example 8. So I want to add a new item in the list. You can say add items, add item or items. So to add new items into the list, we have 2 functions are available. One is append, the other one is insert. These are the 2 functions are available. So by using these 2 functions, we can insert or we can add values into list. Okay. Now let me just take the same list here. And my list equal to, have a 3 items are there in my list. So I have a 3 items in my list: apple, banana, cherry. Now I want to add a new item into the list. I want to add a new item to the list. So simply what you can do is take this element, my list dot append. This is the function. So append is a function. So in which we can directly specify the new item which you are going to add. I'll just say orange. So now this item is going to add inside the list. After adding, you can just print list, print my list. Okay, so after adding this item into the list, I'm just printing the list once again. So if I just execute it, so now you can see previously we have only 3 items, but we have added orange, and now this is a new list. So where the orange is added? At the end of the list. At the end of the list. So whenever you use append command or append function, what will happen? The new item will be added at the end of the list. The new item will be added at the end of the list. So existing elements still be there, but the new item will be added at the end of the list when I use append function. Okay. But suppose I want to insert a value somewhere in the middle of the list. So what is the current list here? This is a current list. What are the items we have in the current list? Apple, banana, cherry, because here we have already added one element here. One item we already added. So this is the current list. The current list contains 4 items. Now I want to insert a new item somewhere in the middle of this list. When I use append, what will happen? The new value will be added at the end of the list. But my requirement is I want to insert a value. Insertion in the sense somewhere in the middle of the list. Then how it is possible? Then we can go with the insert function. Simple. So I'll say my list dot insert. So here the entry question: what is the difference between append and insert? Append function will add a new value at the end of the list, and insert function will able to insert a new value somewhere in the middle of the list. So my list insert, and when I say insert, not only the value. Okay, suppose here I'm just add something. Let's say comment this, remove this, and keep this statement here. Okay, comment this statement. So instead of append, I'm just trying to use insert. So when I use insert, we have to tell where exactly you want to insert the item. So for that, we need to specify the index also. Index, comma, the item value. So for example, this is a 0 element, first element, second element. So where you want to add, where you want to insert a new element, I want to insert a new element after apple. That means between apple and banana. So here I want to insert. Now what is the index of this place? Apple is a 0, and the next item will be the apple is a 0, the next item will be the 1. So in the first place, I want to insert orange. So we have to specify the index first, and then we have to say value. So if you want to add a new item into the list, we can simply say append function. Here index is not required because by default, this value will be added at the end of the list. But when you come to the insert function, we have to explicitly specify where exactly you want to insert that value. So we have to specify the index value accordingly. In that particular place, this new value will be inserted. But what about the rest of the values? The rest of the values still preserved, but it will just move to the next level, next indexes. Now observe this. Previously, we have only 3 items. After adding the orange, it should be in the second position. Totally, how many items will be expecting here? 4 elements should be there. So when I expect, so these are the 4 elements we will have. 4 elements which will be entered. So that means insert function add items somewhere in the middle of the list. Wherever you want to add, you can just specify the index number. Accordingly, this new item will be added into the list. So this is an example how to add items into the list by using append and insert. Now my requirement is I already have some list and I want to remove the item from the list. Example 9. I already have a list, but I want to remove the item from the list. Remove item from the list. How to remove the item from the list? Simply use different methods are there. So we can use 3 methods are available. So first method is pop or function. The first function is pop. By using pop, we can remove the item from the list. So let me just take this list once again. And now list contains the 3 items: apple, banana, and cherry. So I want to delete or I want to remove some item from this list. Suppose I want to remove apple. So what is the index of apple? 0 is the index of apple. So we can call like this: mylist.pop function. We can directly call mylist.pop, and here we have to say just index number. That's it. So which will automatically remove the item from the list. Okay. So here we have to specify the index. Okay, not a value. We have to specify the index, not the value. Okay, remember this. So this is the one approach we have. So after removing, I'll try to print the list. Print my list. Print my list. Execute. See now, so we actually have 3 items. 3 items, but after removing this 0th element, we have only 2 elements. We have only 2 elements or 2 items in the list. So this is the one approach. By using pop function, we can remove the item from the list. Based on the index which we passed, the element will be removed or item will be removed. There is one more function which we have is called del function. So by using del also, we can remove it. Let me copy the same code. Comment here. So here, this is my list which contains the 3 items. Now here, del is not exactly the function actually. This is a keyword. So del is not exactly function. And what is the difference between keyword and function? If it is a function, we have brackets like this. And if it is a keyword, we have to just use only del. This is simple a keyword. Okay. Now, how we can delete the item from the list? So to delete the item from the list by using del keyword, simply we can say del my list of, specify the index here. So which item you want to delete? I want to delete a 3rd item, cherry I want to delete. So this is 0, 1 and 2. Index is 2 here. Specify that. Okay, now here 2 is also index. Okay, so 2 is also here. So here, what del will do is del command removes a single item based on the index we passed. So this is a command, is a keyword, not a function. So if it is a function, we will able to access the function by using a list variable dot. Then we will able to access all the functions. But this is not a function. This is just a keyword. And del, which value you want to delete, my list, inside the my list, second element I want to delete. So this also will remove or delete the item from the list. Now after deleting, let us try to print it. So this time, what is an output you are expecting? 0, 1, 2. So 2 is got deleted. Only 2 elements, apple and banana, will be printed. So apple and banana will be printed. So this is how we can just remove the items from the list. Okay. So here we cannot specify the name. Okay. So here it is not accepting the name. Only through index we can delete the values from the list. So name is not allowed. So only index we have to pass. Okay. This is one approach. So del keyword is available. So here first approach is we use pop function. And the second one is by using del keyword. Now I'll show you one more approach. Comment this statement. And to delete the list, we can still use delete keyword, but it's a something different way we can do that. Del is there. So there is one more method called clear. So clear is a one more method. First method is using pop. Second one is by using del. And the third approach is by using clear function. Again, clear is a function. Okay, clear is a function like a pop. So how to remove the values or item from the list by using clear function? It is again simple. So here I have a list which contains the 3 items. So simply you can call my list dot clear. My list dot clear. That's it. So it will just clear the items, but still list variable is present. That's the difference between this one and this one. So what clear will do is it will basically clear the all items, not only single items, it will clear all items. Okay, it is not like it will not remove one single item, it will clear all items from the list. So after clearing, just try to print the list and see what this will print. So empty list, it is printed. Empty list, it is printed. No items in the list, but still variable is available. So list variable is available. Okay, so these are the 3 functions which we have to remove the item or items from the list. And the specific item, if you want to remove, just go with the pop function or del keyword. Or if you want to remove all the values or all items from the list, then use clear function. So list item or list variable dot clear. So that will clear all the items from the list. So these are all different type of operations. Now, so for example, I already have one list. I want to copy that list into some other list. I want to copy that list into some other list. How it is possible? So example 10. Copying or copy list. So for example, and here I have, again, let's take a same list. And here I have a list variable which contains 3 items. Now I want to copy this list items into some other list. So for example, I'll say my list 2. Let's call it as a my list 1. Okay, my list 1 contains 3 items. And my list 2 contains, and these are just a variable, guys. You can just use A, B, C, something like this. Okay, so my list 2, I want to store all these items into my list 2 also. So in that case, what you can do is you can simply say, specify this my list 1 directly here. And not only this, we have to add one function called list here. List of my list 1. And then what happens? What are the items we have in that my list 1 will be also added into the my list 2. Now both the list variables contains the same values. Let me just print my list 1 and then print my list 2. Execute. Now exactly both the lists are having same values. So this is how we can copy one list into another list. Okay, one list into another list we can copy like this. Okay, so there is one more approach is there. So this is a one method actually. So this is a one approach. Let's say by using list function. Okay, so by using list function, we can copy it. So here we have used list function and specify the list variable, and list function will copy the same list into another variable, and we got the same data. So this is one way to copy the one list into another list. Okay, so there is a one more method is also there. We have also direct method, copy method is there, or copy function is there. So directly by using copy function also we can copy that list. So let me show you. And here, so my list one contains a three items. Okay, and now I want to copy this my list one into my list two. So how we can copy is simply say my list one dot copy function, call the copy function, that's it. So my list one dot copy. So this function, copy function, will copy all the items from this my list into my list two. So this is another approach which we have. So to copy the list, we have a list function and we have also copy function. So list is a function also here, list of my list one, and this will store all the elements into my list two. But here the copy is a function which we can access through list variable. So my list one dot copy. So this will copy all the items from the my list into my list two. So now this time also we will get the same number of items, So this is a one more approach, copy. Okay, first approach is by using list, and the second approach is by using copy. Right, suppose I want to join the two lists. How we can do that? Joining of two lists. I have a list one and I have a list two, and I want to combine those lists into one single list. How we can combine that? Example 11. Combine, or we can call it as a join lists. How to combine and join the two lists? Again, here there are multiple approaches are there. So we can use concatenation operator plus, and also we can use looping statement. Multiple approaches are there. So first approach, using plus operator. How to combine or join the list by using plus operator? So let's take list one here, list one equal to, and this time I'm taking single characters. Let's say A, B, and C. These are also strings. Even though if you have a single character, they are considered as a strings, and you can also keep the double quotations instead of single quotations. You can also keep the double quotations, no problem at all, because double and single quotations both are representing the strings in Python. So now I have three items in the list one, A, B, and C. Now I'll create one more list, list two, which is also having three values, which are numbers. Let's say 1, 2, 3. Now list one contains ABC, list two contains 1, 2, 3. Now I want to combine these two lists into another single list. Let us say I'll take list 3. Now in the list 3, I want to have the values from the list 1 and also values from the list 2. So simply what you can do is list 1 plus list 2. List 1 plus list 2. So plus is acting as a concatenation operator here. And now if I just print list 3, it will print all the values from list 1 and list 3 like this. So this is a one way we can join, or we can concat, or we can combine the two lists by using plus operator. This is one approach. And the second approach is we can also use looping statement. Using looping statement also we can combine and join the two lists. So again, let me take the two list. I'll comment this. So let me just take the two lists, list one and list two. List one contains three values. List two contains another three values. Now I want to combine these two into another list. That's my requirement. Okay. So for that, what we can do is we can simply say for loop here. For, let's take one variable called I in list two. Take the list two. Take the list two, and inside this list one dot append function I'm using, append of I, append of y. So if I just look at this, what append function will do? In the previous example, I told you what is append function will do. Append function will add a new item or new value into the list. Right? If the list contains three values, what append function will do, which will add another value in the fourth position. So at the end of the list, the new value will be added. Right? So if I just look at here, list one already contains three values. List two contains 1, 2, 3. Right? And here from the list two, what I'm doing from the list two, that means this one, I'm taking one after another, all the values. Like first I contains a 1. So from the list two, it will extract 1. And that 1 will be appended to the list 1. So list 1 is already having 3 values. Now it will add another value. And the next round from the list 2, it will take a 2. And 2 will be assigned to the I. Now 2 will be appended to the existing list. Now third round, 3 will be assigned to the I. Now 3 will be appended to the list. So basically what we are doing here, list 1 is already having 3 values. In addition, we are appending these 3 values at the end of list 1. Okay, at the end of list 1. So after coming out of this loop, what list 1 contains? List 1 contains all the values, because through the loop, we have already added all the items from the list 2 into list 1. Right? This is simple logic, guys. So we are reading individual items from the list 2 and appending those items into the list 1 itself. So one after another. So this loop will do that. After completion of this loop, list 1 contains their own elements plus what are the elements which are coming from list 2, 1, 2, 3. So when I execute this statement, print statement, so this will print all the elements from the list 1 and list 2. So this is an output, list 1 and list 2. So this is how we can also join the two lists, and we can print the total values from the two list using looping statement. Okay. And first approach, by using plus operator, we can join. The second approach, by using a loop, we can join. And the third approach is also there. What is the third approach? By using extend function. There is a function called extend function. Extend function. So how to use extend function? How to join the two lists by using extend function? It's very simple. Let us take a two list. List 1 contains 3 values. So list 2 contains another 3 values. Now simply we can say list 1 dot extend. Sorry, this is a list 1. Okay, list 1 dot extend. This is a method, the function extend list 2. List 1 dot extend list 2. Okay, and after what exactly we are doing is we are extending the list 1 from the values from the list 2. So we're extending the list 1 by adding the new values from the list 2. So basically extend function, what the extend function will do, which will extend the list 1 by adding the values from the list 2. And after that, if you just print only list 1, because we are extending the list 1 by adding the new values from the list 2. So list 1 contains all the values now. When I execute this, so list 1 contains all the values. So this is another approach. Okay. So if you want to do something, there are so many approaches are there in Python. All are right approaches. So whichever is familiar, you guys can use that particular approach. Every approach is perfectly correct. Okay. So this is how we can join or combine the list using plus operator, by using a looping statement, and by using a extend function. Okay, so these are all different operations which we can perform on the list. So what is the list? List is a collection which is ordered and changeable. So changeable means what? We have done different type of operations, right? We have added a new elements or new items into the list. We have removed the items and we have combined the items. We have cleaned up the list. So different type of operations are possible. That's the reason which is mutable. List is a mutable. If it is a mutable, all kinds of operations are possible. Okay, so this is all about list collection. The first one, list collection. And what is the use of list? To representing the multiple values in a single entity. I want to store multiple values into the single variable, and that variable should be list type of variable. And how to represent the list? By using square brackets. So by using square brackets, so we can just define normal variable, and in the square bracket we can define the multiple values, whatever values you have. So all the values we can define. Okay, so this is how we need to work with the list collection. Now let us see one more type of collection called tuple. Tuple is another type of collection. So what is a tuple means? So let me just put some points. We will also understand the differences between these collections. That's another most important thing. All right, so a tuple is a collection which is ordered and unchangeable. Unchangeable. But what about the list? It is a changeable, but it is unchangeable. Unchangeable means what? Modification is not possible. Modification is not possible. So in Python, tuples are written with the round brackets. So round brackets in the sense, these are the round brackets. And tuple is immutable. Whereas a list is immutable, whereas a tuple is immutable. That's the only difference between list and a tuple. So what are the two differences? What are the differences? In the list, we have to represent with the square brackets. In the tuple, we have to represent with the open brackets. And tuple also will store multiple values. List also will store multiple values. That's the same thing. But what is the difference? In the list, we can store multiple values, and those values can be changed in future. And because it is a mutable object. Whereas tuple is immutable object. That means we cannot change the elements. So what are the operations are possible in the list? Some operations may not be possible in tuple. Okay, it is more secure than list. Okay, now let me show you how to perform different type of operations on the tuple. Just like a list, tuple is also having different type of functions, and by using those functions we can do different type of operations. Okay, because it is an immutable object, we cannot perform everything what we have done on the list variable. And but tuple is having another type of functions, and we can do different type of operations on tuple also. Now let us see how we need to work with the tuple. Let's go to the PyChamp and create one more Python file. I'll name it as a tuple demo.py. Okay, so now let us start with the tuple. So the first example, how to create a tuple. Example 1, creating tuple. So tuple is also having multiple values. Tuple variable also can hold multiple values. So let me just create a tuple. How to create a tuple? Simple. Create a variable. I'll say my tuple equal to. This time we have to use open brackets, not a square brackets. So my tuple, and here you can specify the values. Let's say the first element is apple, comma, and the second element is banana, comma. Third element is, or third item is, I say cherry. This is my third item. So just like a list, here also we can store multiple values in the tuple. So if you want to create a tuple, this is a syntax. And in case of list, we use a square bracket. Here we use open brackets. Now, if you want to print the items from the tuple, you can just say print my tuple. So this will print all the items from the tuple. So this will print all the items from the tuple. It's very straightforward and very simple. Now, suppose I want to access individual items from the tuple. Individual items from the tuple. How to access? Example 2. Access tuple items. So to access tuple items, just a moment. Okay. So to access tuple items, again, we use index concept here. Again, we use an index concept. Each item is representing with some index. So index again will start from 0 only. So here, let me just create this tuple once again, which contains the 3 items. So I want to access the first item. So how we can access? Simply we can say my tuple is a variable of my tuple of 1. So this is the index actually. So this will return the second element. Banana will be returned. So that I want to print my tuple of 1. Right. So execute. So this will give you the first item. First item is index will start from 0. So this is a 0. This is a 1. Okay. So if you want to create an empty tuple, you can simply say my tuple equal to, and you can simply say bracket. That's it. So you don't have any values in the tuple. This is simple empty tuple. Okay, so it doesn't have any values. This is empty tuple. This is empty tuple. Okay, now, so here I have few number of values in the tuple. I want to extract a specific item from the tuple, so I can pass the index. So this will return banana, because index is always start from 0 also. Here index starts from 0. So 0 element is apple, first element is banana. So to access the item from the tuple, we can pass the index, and we can also pass a negative index. So instead of 1, I'll say -1. So what this will return? The last item. So minus means it will go to the end, and from the end it will find the element. So last item. -1 means cherry. -2 means banana. So this one will return cherry. When I execute this, so this will return cherry. So the last item will be returned. So we can also pass the negative value. And suppose my tuple contains a multiple values. I want to get a few number of values or few number of items based on the range. So from 2 to 4 or 3 to 5, like that. So we can also specify the range. So how to specify the range? Example 3. Range of indexes. Range of indexes. Suppose let us have multiple values here. This time let me take more number of values. This is my tuple. My tuple equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items are there. Totally 7 items are there. Now here I'm just writing like this. My tuple of, okay, my tuple of 2:5, and then I'll print this value. Print my tuple of 2:5. So what this will print? So it will print the values within this range. So 2 means what? 0, 1, 2. Cherry is a second element. From there, which one is the fifth item? So 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So fifth element will not print. So till kiwi it will print. So we will get only 3 values: cherry, orange, kiwi. So let's execute. So this will give you only 3 values which are there in the tuple. So the tuple contains 3 elements now, because we specify the range here. Similarly, we can also specify the negative values. So for example, print my tuple, and here I'll say -4 colon -1. Now tell me what is an outcome of this statement, or is an output of this statement? My tuple -4 -1, -4 and -1. What this will return? -4. -4 means what? 1, 2, 3, 4. Orange. Orange is a -4, because minus values always we need to count from the end. So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the orange. -1 means what? The last element. So last element anyway it will not print. So orange, kiwi, melon. So these are only 3 elements will be printed. So when I execute, we will get only 3 elements. So till here, almost everything is same as a list, right? In the list also we have seen the same kind of things. So we have created the list, we have accessed the items from the list, and we also access the multiple items by using a range. So these things most of the times common. but I'll tell you where exactly there is a difference between list and a tuple. So those scenarios are also I will cover here. So first we will see the similarities. Okay, let me comment this range of indexes system. And now I want to change the tuple values. This is one more. This is a actual difference between list and tuple. Change the tuple values. Example 4. Changing tuple items or values. Is it possible or not? First of all, so can we change the items from the tuple or not? Can we change the items from the tuple or not? So we cannot change the items. Why? Because it is immutable. If it is an immutable, what are all things it is not possible? If it is an immutable object, we cannot modify the existing value. We cannot append the new value. We cannot insert a new value. We cannot remove the existing value. Remember this. Okay. So whenever I say immutable, these 4 options are applicable, because the list, in the case of list, it is a mutable. So that's the reason we are able to do all these operations on the list variable. But because tuple is an immutable object, so we cannot perform these operations on the tuple. That means what? Tuple is more secure than list. When you have the values in the list, anytime anybody can change those values. But when you create a tuple which contains some values, we cannot modify them. We cannot append the new values. We cannot insert a new value. We cannot remove the value. That's the meaning of immutable. So these operations are not possible in tuple. In tuple, it is not possible. Okay. But there are few operations we can do in indirect way, not in the direct way. So I will show you what are those options. So changing the tuple items. So by default, tuple does not allow you to change the values because it is immutable. So by default, tuple does not allow you to change the values because it is immutable. But there is a workaround. In indirect way, we can do that. So what is that indirect way? There is a workaround. What is the indirect way is we can change this tuple into list. We can convert this tuple into the list and do some modification and again convert that list into tuple. That is a process. This is not a direct process I'm saying. Okay. What you have to do, whatever tuple we have, first we will convert the tuple into the list type object. And list we can modify, right? So modify the list and then again this list we can convert it to tuple. This is an indirect process we can follow. But directly we cannot modify the values in the tuple. Remember that. So we don't have such type of functions. But if you want to change the items from the tuple, so this is the indirect way we can follow. Now I'll tell you how to do this. So let me just take the tuple here. So this is my tuple. My tuple equal to apple, banana, cherry. I have 3 items in my tuple. So I cannot modify these values. I cannot modify this value because it is immutable. So what I will do is first I will convert this tuple into the list type of object. How to convert it? So here I'm taking my list is a variable. My list equal to my tuple. So we cannot directly assign the tuple into the list. To convert this tuple into the list, we have to use one function called list function like this. Okay. Now what happens? This tuple will be converted into the list and then store it into the my list. Now what my list contains? My list is also contains the same values. Now we can modify the my list, right? We can modify the my list. So now I will modify the my list. So I will change the first value. How to change the value in the my list? My list of 0. Instead of apple, I will just say orange. List only I modified. I have not directly modified the tuple. So I have just converted this tuple into my list. Still my tuple is there as an independent object. We have just converting this my tuple as a list object, storing that into another variable. This is a list variable. And then in this list, 0 item I have changed. And after changing this 0 item, what is the list contains now? Orange, banana, and cherry. Because apple is already changed. Now this list again I will change into the tuple. How to change the list into tuple? Same process. So again, take this my tuple, okay, equal to specify the list, and list I want to convert into the tuple. For that, we use a function called tuple like this. This is a indirect process. So tuple, we cannot directly modify it. So we have to convert this tuple into the list and do modification. After that, convert this list into again tuple. Now, if I just print the tuple, you will get modified values. See, this orange is modified in the tuple. So this is an indirect process which we can modify the tuple, but directly it is not possible because it is an immutable object. Tuple is a immutable, list is a mutable. Guys, clear on this? This is most important one. This is the one difference between list and a tuple. Okay. Now, yes, you can also have different data types in tuple. No issues at all. No issues at all. Let me just put some values. So any collection, you can have any number of values, any type of values, not only this one. You can go for the list or tuple, set or dictionary. All types of collections allowed to store different type of data also. You don't need to have a single type of data. You can have any type of data, no issues at all. So let me just show you this. Let me just put different value. Let's say here I will put number, and here I will put another number. So combination string, two numbers are there. Now execute. So it is same again. So change only first value have got change, and rest of the different data type values we can store. Okay, so all collection types allowed to store different type of data types. All the different data types we can store. Okay. Now, so this is how we can change the items in the tuple. So don't forget this. We cannot directly modify the tuple. We cannot change the values in the tuple, but indirectly we have to convert the tuple into the list and do modification, and then again assign to the tuple. So that is possible. Okay. Yes, we can also compare the tuples. I'll show you a few examples. Okay. Fine. So this is one example. Changing the tuple items are not directly possible. Through list, it is possible. Now, so let me show you one more example. So if you want to print the items from the tuple, how we have printed earlier. So the tuple contains a multiple values, and to extract individual values, we have printed like this. So tuple name and contains a values. Again, tuple name contains a index. By passing index, we have extracted specific item from the tuple. And again, if you have a 10 items or 20 or 50 items, it is very difficult to write multiple print statements. So instead of that, we can simply write a loop statement by which we can read all the items from the tuple. Reading is possible, but changing or modification is not possible. Remember this. Okay, we can read the data. So the next example, example 5. So reading tuple items using loop. So simple. Let me just create a tuple like this. My tuple, apple, banana, cherry. I have 3 items in my tuple. So again, just write a one for loop for I in my tuple colon, and then print I. So how it is going to execute? From my tuple, it will first get the first item, store that item in the I, then it will print here, and get another item, store into I, then again print here. Third item, again store into the I, and then again print it here. So now when I execute this, so this will give you all the items individually. So this is how we can read the items from the tuple using looping statement. Okay. Suppose I have another requirement. For example, I want to check an item is present in the tuple or not. I want to check the item is present inside the tuple or not. So how we can check? That means check if the example 6, check if the item exists. That means searching of an item in a tuple. So let me just take a tuple which contains 3 items. So I want to check banana is present inside the tuple or not. Banana is present inside the tuple or not, I want to check. So for that, we can just write one if condition. How to write an if condition? Simply close this and if banana, simple banana. Okay, so if banana in my tuple, just like a list, in the list also we have written the same logic. Okay, if banana in tuple, because banana is already there in my tuple, so banana in tuple, then print simply say yes banana is present. Else what? Else print no, banana is not present. Simple condition you can write like this. Okay, so let's execute. Yes, so banana is present. Suppose if I give some different value which is not present. Okay, so this is how we can search an item is present inside the tuple or not. Okay, suppose let me just give you one more example. I want to find the total number of items in a tuple. Example 7. Find the total number of items in a tuple. So how we have find in the list? In that list, how we have find how many items are in this list? So we use one function. Do you guys remember that function? So which function we have used? Len function, right? Same function is also available for tuple also. It is exactly same. Now let me just specify the tuple which contains the 3 items, and simply we can say len of my tuple, and this will return the length of a tuple that I can print length of tuple. Execute. So this will print 3. So totally 3 elements or 3 items are there in my tuple. So this is exactly same as a list. And one more operation. So this is again same as a list. Example 8. Add items into the tuple. Can we add items to the tuple? Can we add items to the tuple, new items to the tuple? No, we cannot, because it is a immutable. Immutable means what? We cannot modify, we cannot append, we cannot insert, we cannot remove. So because the tuple is immutable, so we cannot add new items into the tuple. So this is not possible. Remember this. So not possible because tuple is immutable. We cannot change the values or items. Okay, but if you still try to change the value, then what will happen? Let us try. So let me just have this tuple, and in just like a list, how we have changed? First we have accessed the element by using index number. Let me just access apple by passing 0 as an index. Now here I want to change the value, just like say orange. Okay, so orange. Here it will not give you any error. Okay, it will not show you any error. Right, so after printing this, I'm just trying to print my tuple here. Okay, so observe this. So tuple is having 3 items. I try to change the 0 item with orange, and after that I'm printing the tuple, right? Now let us execute and see what is an error it is giving. Just read that error. My tuple 0 orange, type error. Tuple object does not support item assignment. Means what? We cannot assign the value into the tuple. We cannot assign the new value into the tuple. We cannot insert, we cannot add. But in case of list, we can do that by using append function, by using insert function. But here append and insert functions will not work. So this particular statement will throw you type error. This will throw you type error. It's not valid because adding the new items is not possible in tuple because it is a immutable. Next example. Can we copy the tuple? Yes, that is again indirect way. Again, that is also possible. So we can convert this tuple into again list and change the value, again convert into the tuple. That's the reason I said that example in the first one. So here, changing the tuple items is always possible only through list. Okay, if I don't want to use list again, directly it is not possible. So not only the insertion, updation, removing, all these things we can do in the list, but not directly in the tuple. Okay. But still, if you want to do those operations in the tuple, first we need to convert the tuple into the list. And then you do whatever operations you want on the list. And again, finally convert that into the tuple. That's fine. That is the indirect process. But by default, it is not possible. And here as a workaround, we can do that. We can convert this into list. Then you can modify the value. After that, again, convert it into the tuple. Then you can print the values from the tuple. That is always possible. Now, let me just tell you one more requirement. Example 9. So can we copy the tuples or not? Copy tuple. One tuple into another tuple. Can we copy one tuple into another tuple? Can we do it or not? Yes, we can do that. Copying, there is no issue, because in the copying, we are not doing any changes in the tuple, right? If in the tuple is having 1, 2, 3, there are 3 values. We are just copying the same values into another tuple, but we are not changing the values in the existing tuple. So still values are there. We are not touching the values. We are not removing any, we are not adding anything. So copying is always possible. Okay. We can copy the one tuple into another tuple because we are not directly changing anything in the data, right? So let me just take one tuple here. My tuple 1 equal to, I have 3 items, apple, banana, and cherry. Okay. Now here I want to store this tuple in another tuple. So let's take another tuple. My tuple 2 equal to my tuple 1. Directly you can specify. And after that, I can print my tuple 2. Okay, my tuple 2. So now my tuple 2 is also contains the same data. Execute. So this is also having the same data. So copying is possible. Copying is possible. Suppose I want to remove items from the tuple. Is it possible or not? Removing items from the tuple. Example 10. Removing items from tuple. Removing items from the tuple. It is not possible. Removing is not possible because it is immutable. Not possible because tuple is a immutable. Okay, but let us try to remove and see what will happen. Let me create one tuple here. Okay, and how to remove the how we have removed the value from the list earlier. So first we have access the list. Similarly, let us try to access this tuple dot. We called remove function. So you can just look at here. Whenever I say dot remove, it is not displaying in the pop-up list. Remove is not there. Why? Because remove is not supported. Remove is not supported. So here, if I say remove and whichever value you want to remove, you can just specify that. Let's say apple I want to remove. This is invalid statement. Invalid statement because it is not possible. It is not possible. Okay, remember this. Now I want to completely delete my tuple. I want to completely delete my tuple. So that is possible by using del keyword. Del my tuple. And after that, if I try to print my tuple data, my tuple, which will give you an error. So my tuple is already deleted here. Right? So this is anyway invalid statement. So I'm just commenting this. So now the tuple contains 3 values and deleting the tuple and then trying to print the tuple. But without having the tuple, so it will give an error. What is saying? Name error. My tuple is not defined. That means what? It is not available because we already deleted here. We have already deleted the tuple. So that is not available. Okay. Similarly, let me just tell you one more example. Joining of tuples. Can we join the 2 tuples? Let us say example 11. Joining or combine tuples. Is it possible or not? Joining or combine the tuples is possible or not? Yeah, it is always possible because both are tuples only. Let me just create 2 tuples. I'll say tuple 1 equal to 10, 20, 30. I'll create one more tuple 2 equal to A, B, C. Okay, so I have taken two tuples. So just I want to combine these two tuples and have those values into another tuple. So let's create one more tuple called tuple 3. Simple, I can say tuple 1 plus tuple 2. And then print tuple 3. Print tuple 3. Execute. So this will print all the combined values. So joining or concatenation is always possible. So this is how we need to compare. We need to work with the list and a tuple. Clear, everyone? Please confirm in the chat window. Okay, so this is how we can just do that. And how to compare the list. Finally, we'll see one more operation, how to compare two lists are equal or not, or two tuples are equal or not. Same logic. So let me just give one last example. Example 12. So let's have two tuples here. Comment this. And I want to compare tuple 1 and tuple 2 are equal or not. So simple, write one if condition. If tuple 1 equal to tuple 2, then print they are, or you can simply say tuples are equal. Else what? Print tuples are not equal. Okay, so we can directly compare the tuples. So currently we have a different values, it should not be equal. So when I execute this, tuples are not equal. Let us have same values. Inside this, I'll put again in the tuple 2 also, I will keep the same values and then comment the second statement. And now tuple 1 contains 10, 20, 30. Tuple 2 also contains a 10, 20, 30. So tuples are equal. So we can compare the two tuples. Same thing we can do for the list also. Let me show you for the list. Go to the list demo. And here we can show you. I can show you here. So for the list also, we can do the same thing. So I think this example 11 and this is an example 12. So let's have tuple 1 and let's have a list. Okay, my list 1. List means what? We have to use square brackets. Okay, my list 1 and say my list 2. So my list 2 square bracket. So now I need to check these two lists are equal or not. So simply we can use one if condition. I say my list 1 dot equal to my list 2. Then you can say lists are equal or else lists are not equal. So both are same now. So we will get lists are equal. Okay, so this is how we can also compare the list comparison. List comparison. And here tuples comparison. Okay, so this is how we need to work with the list and tuple. Yes, you can use subset, tuple 2 in tuple 1. Yeah, you can use all kinds of operators. Subset also we can use. In operator we can use. Yesterday we have discussed a few functions, right? So we can use some of the functions and we can check. So like this, there are so many functions are there, guys. It is very difficult to remember all the functions. Hundreds of functions are there for every kind of collection, and depends upon your requirement. You have to just choose proper function, and we can just go through some documentation and check whether is there any method available or not. And you can just use that method. So that's how we can just practice the functions. Okay, so I will share one document today, so you guys can go through this. And whatever functions we have discussed, I clearly mentioned all the functions in this document for the list as well as tuple. Okay, all the operations, list as well as tuple. So go through this document, and here it is started from tuple. So do all kinds of operation and do some practice on these two collections. And the next session, I will talk about the rest of the two collections, set and the dictionary. Okay. So I'll stop here for today. So we will continue in the tomorrow session.